On this episode of ResiWeek, we talk about CEDIA building a new headquarters, Crestron is building a smart light bulb, and Tesla is changing the grid. All this and more on this episode of ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Access Networks.
This is ResiWeek episode 72, coal-powered.
This is ResiWeek.
Welcome to ResiWeek. This is your weekly wrap-up of all the latest news and stories for the residential AV industry. I'm your host, Matty Scott for AVNation.tv, and today I'm pleased to be joined by Josh Willits. He is the VP of Dealer Happiness at Portal. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good, Matt. It's good to be here.
Hey, thanks for being here again. Then we have Mitch Klein. He's the Executive Director of the Z-Wave Alliance. How are you, sir?
Hey, Matt. I'm doing wonderful, and happy summer to you.
Hey, thank you. It is hot and steamy and gross here.
It is here, too.
Excellent. We can all be hot, steamy, and gross together.
I'm not going to take you up on that.
And that's our title. All right, gentlemen, let's jump right into some fun. This comes to us from Residential Systems and Jeremy Glowacki. CEDIA is planning to build a new global headquarters in the Indy suburb of Fisher. Now, I don't personally remember exactly where Fisher is in relation to their existing location, but that doesn't really matter. The fun thing is that CEDIA is planning to occupy somewhere between 30,000 and 40,000 square feet in a new design build space that will include office space, a world-class training facility, a full experience center, an auditorium, et cetera, all of which is supposed to be available for member use. Now, this comes after something like 18 months of research as the board has gone over their existing location and the fact that their lease was running out, and looking at the cost of what their lease and improvement cost had been over the last couple of years versus what the new build cost was going to be. This seemed to be the sound investment. Josh, obviously this is a big deal for CEDIA. They're gonna own some land, own a building, and be able to provide hopefully a lot of training within that facility. As for members specifically, how does this benefit them beyond, again, having a nice large training facility available to them?
I think it gives CEDIA a lot of flexibility long term. I think it's probably being good stewards of their finances. It's a good move. It's always positive when you do something like this versus just leasing the space. It's my understanding that it was a pretty old building that they were in. There were a lot of upgrades that they couldn't really do. The carpet was there from 2003, for instance, somebody told me. It's going to be a great asset for the training, I think, is the big thing. Not just that CEDIA will be able to train, or CEDIA members will be able to train employees and get them up to speed, but also to develop the workforce, which I think is a big initiative of CEDIA, and I think it's going to be positive for all the members from that perspective, especially.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And when you look at, I'm just trying to locate that number. They had spent $4 million in rent and upkeep since 2003, which right. That seems you would not expect that in a newer building. Mitch,
well, that's rent also, and it's not.
Oh, yes, it's right. Rent and upkeep. But notwithstanding, that's a lot for rent and upkeep.
Yep.
Mitch, looking at the fact that they're going towards the area of Fishers, which is off I-69, if you are familiar with that region, it's been named a great place to live by Time and Niche the last 2 years, and it's an upstart region for tech companies. Do you think that, and again, I know you're not in the board member meetings and things like that per se, but do you think that played into it at all to focus, the hub of home technology in with all these other tech companies that are starting to create a bit of a groundswell in that region?
There's clearly a lot of decisions that get into, making that call. And obviously, it's not just the current pricing where that particular commercial marketplace is right now, or where it's going to go. But I think the bigger question really, and the debate that's been going on, is that you need to bring this into the context of what CEDIA has been doing. And we know they went and sold the show.
Mm-hmm.
There has been some question as to what is the future, how is the financing of the organization going forward. And I think if you really read into what they're doing there, is they're picking a prime location. They have the ability to expand further if things go, and of course they're going to rent out that 10,000 square feet. But look at this, they have an auditorium, and we haven't really talked about an experience center as well as the training facility, and they say it's for members. Now, we keep thinking in terms of integrator members, and of course it's really important for integrator members. There's a lot of good training that can go on there. But in terms of what's the future revenue opportunities, where is CEDIA going to go? And they keep saying the future is education. Well, they have a training facility that they can lease out to their members. So pick a member, Control 4, pick any member. Pick a manufacturer member. You can now rent the place out. You've got an auditorium. You can rent the place out. You've got an experience center. So there's all kinds of revenue opportunities for the organization to help move things forward. And it's not like it's about a revenue grab, because it's offering opportunities for members on a pay-to-play basis, which is a great way to do it.
Now, am I off base in thinking, kind of down your line, Mitch, that by having, obviously the auditorium and the training space available for them in-house, as well as for members, both obviously dealers and manufacturers, but the fact that they have a full experience center, and they're not manufacturing anything. So it's not like a Crestron experience center or Control Force experience center where you want to bring people in to see your exact wares. In this situation, they're having an experience center on site to allow them to, bring on better in-depth interviews with the media to promote the organization and the industry. Am I correct in that?
Absolutely. That's huge. There's been talk about this for years, is how is CEDIA going to address the end users and the consumer media? Because obviously we do pretty well with the trade. So clearly that's a big piece of it. It's also, again, let's go back to the education aspect, and let's take a look at the fact we need to grow a workforce.
Mm-hmm.
So the Experience Center ties into the training, bringing in potential workforce partners, whether it be technical schools, universities, colleges, high schools, whatever that happens to be. So there's a lot of places one could go if you start thinking a little creatively with it. I think it's a great idea. I know it's getting some pushback because, hey, that's a lot of money, but I think it's the right investment to make because the opportunities are enormous.
I think just to jump in on what you asked in terms of the location, I do think that it was very intentional to look at Fishers from the technology standpoint. It is being referred to, at least in Indiana, as the sort of the next Silicon Valley. So I've half my staff volunteers for CEDIA, so we're fairly well connected in there. And what I'm hearing here is that that location was pretty specific. It wasn't just the biggest opportunity for foot traffic, for instance.
Very good. All right, gentlemen, let's move on to a story that comes to us from CE Pro and Julie Jacobson. It seems that Crestron, in their desire to continue to expand their reach, had filed a patent back in 2015 for a smart light bulb, or a smarter smart light bulb, with the full-on Crestron logo right on the head, which is nice. I'm not sure what that does for lumen or specific lux count, but it could be fun to see.
Signal,
It is the bat signal. I'm totally getting a cease and desist. All right. Gentlemen, Crestron is known for, especially recently, going after additional markets, right? For the longest time, they were well-versed in control and control only. And then over the last couple of years, they've added, lighting control, shading, speakers. This year at Infocom, they released a full line of essentially PA speakers to compete with some of the better known brands in that realm. Is this something that we need Crestron to look at?
Do we really need them to?
Yeah.
Well, I think Crestron needs to, and I think they've done some really smart things. I remember when iPads were first coming out, people were saying, "Hey, that's the end of Crestron." But, Crestron didn't listen to them, fortunately for them and for the dealers. I think if we look specifically at this patent, we can scratch our heads a bit and go, well, you're going to reach into a lamp and, turn the bulb on and off. I don't know. But specific to what they're doing, this is definitely a problem with smart bulbs, or shall we say addressable bulbs.
Mm-hmm.
Because you turn the power switch off and, well, it's not so smart anymore. I don't know if that really solves the problem, but I give them a lot of credit for going after it. And I think it's the right thing for them to do.
Josh, with products like this that have such a mass consumer market, these aren't traditionally something that your CEDIA channel integrator is going to consider or even look at, let alone sell. Is this Crestron just saying, hey, we're working on this, obviously we're going to patent it so that we can maintain that and either use it or sell it or license it, something like that? Or is it more Crestron looking at potential and saying, hey, there is a mass market that a lot of our dealers will never touch, but we can get our foot in the door with something like this?
Yeah, I think, first of all, Crestron is an engineering company. So this is not abnormal for a company that's so focused on engineering to be applying for patents all the time, just to protect their intellectual property. Whether they were thinking in 2015 that they could go mass market with this, I don't think that's the case. I could be wrong, but I really don't think it is. From a practical standpoint, even in the consumer level, and I've kind of been thrown into this recently just because I'm kind of a borderline millennial. I don't totally qualify, but I'm like right on the line.
I'm with you, brother. I'm with you.
And I've been looking at, I don't have a lot of technology in my house. So I've been talking with integrators about what are they doing for this type of client. And it's not something that even somebody with a smaller house that doesn't have a control system is going to get into that much. I think from a practical standpoint, Crestron probably recognize that most houses that have Crestron have desk lamps and people are constantly turning them off, whether it's from a light switch or from the actual lamp. And, creating the technology to fix that problem, because dealers were getting calls from their customer that says their light's broken and they can't turn it on. I mean, I was in somebody's small apartment and they had the Lutron dimmers that plug in, and he couldn't figure out how his lamp wouldn't turn on because somebody new was in there and did something, turned off the lamp instead of the plug and the dimmer. And it took him, 10 minutes to figure out what the problem was. I think at its simplest, that's all this could be from Crestron, is just fixing that problem for integrators. It's not something that integrators won't be able to make use of. It's fairly limited in its application, at least the way it's written, the way I read it. So,
right.
I tend to think it's pretty simple, but like even Julie pointed out all the ways that you could solve this problem, outside of this particular technology. So
how often do we as an industry that obviously focuses on technology, how often do we get caught up in some of these patents? And because I'm kind of with you, Josh. I look at this and go, sure, okay. I've never seen the need for this. I've never wanted this. It's not something I really care about. And yet, not only can Julie write a full piece on it, we can talk about it for 10 minutes. Is this a bigger thing in our industry where, someone releases a patent with an option for whatever it is, it doesn't matter, and the rumor mill starts going?
This is not an intent to be a mass market product, because you're not going to mass market Crestron. It's just not going to.
Exactly.
Even with the logo on the bulb?
Levels. Listen. The product itself is not practical. Okay. Kudos for doing it. Kudos for getting out there. It's not practical. Right? I just don't see how, even if you have a switch on your lamp, you're not going to reach up into the lamp housing and turn. I mean, people don't do that anymore.
Yeah, but part of the patent application was to replace the lamp switch with a digital switch. Right. So, I mean, it is kind of practical. Mine are all wired to a light switch on the wall, but it's still the same problem, right? So there's a lot of, at my parents, they always reach over and turn off their lamp. So I think there's some consumer application there.
It's an overreaching patent. So basically, it's a licensing opportunity for them if someone else starts to encroach on that patent. And I think that's probably the bigger play for them should that happen. They're looking at Lutron and saying Lutron was kicking back for what? I forget how long these patents were. But, you know, for putting low voltage in a high voltage device, they had that patent for quite a bit. And they had to license it. So that's a smart move on Crestron's part.
So you can buy a $250 light bulb or go out to True Value and buy a $10 light timer.
I'm not saying it's practical with the Crestron name on it, but if they license it, who knows? You know, who knows? There are companies, you know, we do work with a company called Leaderson. They're making 50 million, that's 50 million LED bulbs per month. You know, if what they're doing all of a sudden encroaches on Crestron's patent, a couple of nice chunk of change for them.
Yeah. Well, and again, that's the business side of the industry opposed to just the technology side.
Sure.
Is going after that money. All right, gentlemen, speaking of business, let's go over to CNET. And this comes from Stephen Shankland. And Tesla is changing the electric grid. The next power plant could be the giant Powerwall battery in your garage. Now, you may not think that this instantly applies to us as, you know, CEDIA channel people and integrators in general. But let's keep in mind that we're seeing a massive shift from, you know, traditional technologies to smart home technologies and LED technologies and energy efficiency. As you read through this, and I'm not going to cover the whole thing, the long and short of it is that Tesla has developed, you know, their roof tiles, their batteries, as well as their cars to kind of work together in storing and making electricity available without going through the traditional power plant methods. Josh, are we to the point yet where we're actually at a fundamental change in the way consumers and essentially homeowners are using electricity, or are we still on the cusp of seeing that true change?
I think we're still on the cusp, but I think it's going to move fast when it does move. So especially with the roof tiles, looks like they're going to be shipping into some markets later this year. And I've heard my market, which is not a big market, is going to be getting them in early 2018, at least one or two versions of the tiles. So I think once the technology becomes more and more available and the prices come down, and nobody knows better than, how to fund those technologies in order to get them in the hands of people than Musk. So I think we're still on the cusp, but I think it is going to move quickly once the technology hits. This decentralization of electricity is going to happen. There's no way around it.
Mitch, looking at this from the eyes of the integrator, is there any hope? And I don't want to, sound like I'm totally off this concept, but is there any hope of the integrator really being involved on this level of smart home once we're getting into solar and power walls and everything else? Or is this going to be the domain of the EC and the solar technician?
This kind of came up many years ago, probably dating myself, but with lighting control, where the lighting control products, Lutron in particular, trying to sell through the electrical community was not working, was not effective, and so they came to the integrator side. Integrators need to be proactive about this. If you looked at the numbers just in that particular article, they were talking about, what is it, a Power 2, I forget what they call it, the Power 2 wall. Power 2 battery is $5,500 and installed for $7,000. if I do my math correctly, that's almost $1,500 in labor.
Yeah.
Perhaps some materials in that too. So you're looking at some real profit opportunities. And then, of course, with the current, U.S. government, I won't mention names, these are going to be coal-fired after a while. So, it's not going to be so, personal coal-fired battery unit, in fact.
Does that mean I get a coal chute?
Yeah, anyway, but, really all to the side. Tesla's awesome because they have the brand recognition and they get the word out. But there are actually companies doing this better and faster. And if you look into Europe, which is, energy costs are much higher in Europe. You've got a company out of Germany called Sonnen that's doing a better job of this than even Tesla. But it's great that you've got these, these hero brands like a Tesla and an Elon Musk trumpeting where this is going. And again, if you are an integrator, you ought to be looking into how you want to get into this. And a good place to start is to get your electrical license because you're probably touching line voltage. But I think it's a great opportunity for integrators. But if you're just kicking back and saying, hey, I'm just going to install AV, then no, you're just going to kind of watch it happen.
The rollout of the roof tiles, the solar systems, is through contractors. So
yes,
it's not only Solar City. So there's an opportunity there, and I know a lot of integrators have electrical contractors, and especially with a lot of the codes sort of shifting and changing.
Okay, so gentlemen, we were talking about in the past 4 or 5 years, everyone's talked about how AV integrators need to move beyond AV and start to become, the owners of the network, become IT people, or at the very least partner with a good quality IT firm that can help you with your deployments within homes and businesses. With the growth of the smart home technology and specifically the smart energy movement, is it time for us to go after that electrical market? And Mitch, you mentioned it earlier, go get your electrical license. Is it time where we now need to be AV IT electrical firms?
I think when we told dealers to go out and focus on IT specialties, we had already told them to get their electrical licenses. That's already happened. So if they haven't already, then they need to look at it. And a lot of them do. So, and a lot of them are partnered with electrical companies. In fact, I see a lot of low voltage companies that are, sister companies to electrical firms. So I think, the opportunity is there. And if you want to go after it, you have to do what it takes. But this isn't new, because especially with a lot of the licensing requirements in different states, a lot of guys are already there.
Very good.
Totally right.
Sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
I was going to say, totally right. We've been talking about getting integrators partnering up with electrical contractors for some time. You can also bring in an electrical contractor as part of your leadership team. In some states, that's totally cool, and you can get your license that way. Obviously, you have to look at your local licensing requirements. But again, you can't be all things to all people, so you really kind of got to think this one through.
Well, and I think this harkens back to the concept of a good contractor in general, like a good general GC. They're the guys that they know what they're talking about, but they're smart enough to bring in their plumbers, their electricals companies. They're all those different facets they bring together to the table to provide that full package. And I think we in the AV space need to do the same. We need to stop pushing some of these other trades away and bring them into the fold so that we can offer that complete package solution for our clients.
Well, there was just an article last week, and I forget where I read it, but about if you can control it, you should do it, right? So there's no I think it should be done well, but essentially you want to become the main point of contact for as many systems in your client's house as possible. That you're providing a real value to your customer. So if that's electrical and it's low voltage and it happens to be, IT as well, and it's a blend, then, go for it.
I love it. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. We'll have to stop there. Josh, where can people connect with you?
I'm VP of Dealer Happiness, as you said, with Portal. So they can check out our software at portal.io or download the iOS app. Just search this app store for portal.io.
Very good. Thanks again for being here. Mitch, thanks again for joining us as well. Where can people connect with you?
Always a pleasure, Matt. And I'm Mitch at zwavealliance.org. That's z-wavealliance.org. Or you can always tweet at me at Mitchell_Klein.
Very good. Again, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. For myself, if you'd like to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter at Matt D. Scott, and pretty much every other social platform. But more importantly, please take a moment to stop by AVNation.tv. You'll find this show as well as a wide variety of our other shows with all the verticals that we cover. When you visit the website, please take a moment to check out our underwriters. They support us, and we're extremely thankful for their support and ask that you support them as well. Thanks again for joining us for this episode of ResiWeek.